Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and have had yourselves a great Monday, great start to the week. Made the most out of a Monday. I know I did. Well, it was easy for me because I didn't have to go to work. I went on a field trip with my little girl, which we had a really good time. Went to a local farm up the road. Got to do some things. Didn't get to see as many farm animals as I would have liked, but it was cool. We got to pick some strawberries, and more importantly, all the kids had a lot of fun. You can tell they did. So I really enjoyed that. I try to volunteer, chaperone for every single field trip, and just gives me a reason to get out of work and hang out with my kids and other kids also. Definitely not afraid to admit I enjoy hanging out with kids more than adults. And that's just because I still have a lot of the kid inside of me. But with that being said, we're here to talk about the weather, and I appreciate you folks joining me tonight to do so. We're going to talk about the ongoing strong to severe thunderstorm threat between now and the next several hours into the overnight hours, and then we'll also discuss in some pretty good detail on what could happen tomorrow. We have a threat in the southern plains and the mid-Atlantic for severe weather, so we'll talk in detail on that. And then we'll even go past tomorrow into Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll talk a little bit on the severe weather potential that's going to kind of be in the same area. But this could tweak a little bit, and this is because of an upper level low, and we'll certainly talk about that, but we'll get much more detail in the coming videos here in the next 24 to 48 hours. But with that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You ever consider joining the channel? I made the community post about a couple hours ago, and you can join right at the head of the header of my YouTube channel, or there's a tab right below the video, and I got 28 incredible members who have joined to my channel, and I have a big goal by the end of summer to hit 40 members. So if you ever consider doing that, it's just a way to support what I do monthly on this channel. It definitely means the world. So these people who have joined my channel have done it unconditionally. I don't really give anything to these guys, any coffee mugs or any kind of special videos. It's just all love, and I appreciate it. But with that being said, I do have some plans for the future. I just have to. There just has to be a lot of things to happen before we get there. And one of the goals is to just get to a spot where I can put more time and more effort into these videos. And that's just going to probably take me doing this full time. So it's going to take a while before I can get to that. But I definitely think it's possible, and God willing, it will happen. So I really appreciate the support from everybody regardless. Even if you're not a member, I don't want anybody to feel any kind of way just because they're not a member that I'm going to treat you guys any different. I'm not. There's a lot of people who watch my content daily and make this part of their routine, and that means the absolute world to me. So with that being said, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can do it. So I can do that. I can pray over, and so others can do so too. So let's get rolling. We'll take a look at the satellite. There's a lot of outflow boundaries, a lot of boundaries ongoing. You got big storms starting to fire up in Missouri. They'll probably get some storms that fire up in southern Illinois here in the coming hours, and we'll discuss this as we have a severe thunderstorm watch for portions of this region right here in Missouri and Illinois surrounding states. And then we have some big time thunderstorm development ongoing in southeast Texas. I say big time. It's not like an outbreak or anything like that, but we definitely have some high rising shooting thunderstorm tops here in Texas. And then we even got some cumulus clouds beginning to build here in the heart of Texas, where they did have the slight risk. So we are having some thunderstorm development. When I mentioned this morning that there was a possibility that nothing could develop, but looks like it's getting going. And then we had some unexpected convection that kind of fired up in South Carolina, areas of Georgia today. This is beginning to drift off the coastline of the southeast. And we got a lot of boundaries just flying around up here that could reinitiate more storms. But right now, between now and tomorrow morning, you do have the slight risk of severe thunderstorms. It stretches all the way from southern Missouri, areas of northern Arkansas, areas of Tennessee, Kentucky, up into the Ohio Valley. Still got that 2% risk of a tornado. Even this little small area in Iowa and southeast Minnesota, we'll have to watch for a storm or two in this area later tonight. And then the wind threat, 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher. And the hail threat, watch out here in the next few hours. You could have some big hailstorms in southern sections of Missouri and Illinois. I would watch. Not only do you have the 15% risk of hail in 1 inch diameter or larger, you have a 10% risk of significant hail, which is 2 inch in diameter or larger hail in this region. So please take this serious. The hail could be a big deal here in the coming hours in this region. In fact, you got a severe thunderstorm watch all the way to 11 p.m. Central Time And all these yellow counties right here. This includes all of southern Missouri, Springfield, Poplar Bluff. Not quite up to St. Louis, but that doesn't mean that you won't see a storm or two out there. Paducah, Kentucky, all the way to Evansville, Indiana. All right, Carbondale, Illinois. Don't have my phone up to shoot off a bunch of cities and towns this time. So if I kind of jip your area and don't mention a specific town, I do apologize. But severe thunderstorm watch out for this region. A couple tornadoes are possible. Scattered hail up to tennis ball size likely, and then you can have an occasional scattered wind gust up to 70 miles per hour out here also. And we kind of zone into this area. I'm going to go on and just get a little bit closer to here in the next few hours. In fact, it's kind of happening right now. Let's go on and pull the radar out of St. Louis. Here we go. Yep, we even got a tornado warning up here in kind of north central Indiana, just I would say northeast of Lafayette, so definitely watch out for this region. So there's a lot of action just kind of isolated and out there. That's why these videos over the last couple of days, I've kind of been jumping back and forth from geographical location like crazy. It's because there's a lot of little small areas to mention, but you got some storms that are, popping off here in southern Missouri. This one has produced half-inch size hail. I can almost guarantee you these are producing hail too. You just don't have a report on them. But these storms will continue to kind of move in general to the east. A little zonal flow to them. And eventually you'll have more convection that probably gets going in southern Illinois. And the HRRR model is doing doing the best it can. But we'll watch these storms fire up. They'll kind of get even stronger here in the next hour or two. Then we get to about 9 p.m. They'll kind of cluster together here in southern sections of Missouri. And we'll see if we do get any kind of big-time storm development or ongoing storms that move from southern Missouri into southern Illinois over the next few hours into the evening hours. So watch out if you're far southern areas of Illinois. You could have some powerful storms here in the next several hours, even to the Boot Heel of Missouri. Watch out. A little bit later this evening, I would say, these storms could get intense in this region, even into the Paducah area. Could get some storms that roll in kind of late evening into the overnight hours in this region. And we'll see if these storms continue to kind of chug along into western Tennessee over the next several hours, into the wee hours of the morning, really, and kind of deliver some gusty winds, maybe some small hail, and some lightning and heavy rain into western Tennessee. And these might make it all the way into northern Mississippi, northern Alabama as we're getting into around the 4, 5, 6 a.m. time frame. But we'll move to the threat tomorrow. You have two areas. This area is kind of wild. It expands all the way up into South Dakota, goes all the way down into southwest Tennessee. There I go again, calling Texas, Tennessee. All the way down into southwest Texas. One day I'll stop doing that. I guess that's just my trademark. So, but you got a slight risk here in northern Oklahoma and then southern areas of Kansas. And then you also have a little bit of a slight risk here in the panhandle of Texas. You have a slight risk also in eastern North Carolina. Marginal risk stretches from Columbia all the way up to the Richmond area. You are going to have some severe storms into the eastern Carolinas, even Virginia, potentially for tomorrow. Tornado threat, 2% risk in this region. This is kind of day one to a little bit of an active stretch for eastern and northeastern sections of Colorado. A lot of people don't realize it's never been to Colorado, but the entire eastern half of the state of Colorado is just flat. It's just plains, just like Kansas, Nebraska. But of course, you can, if you're riding across, if you're driving west across eastern Colorado, of course, you keep driving enough and you'll see the mountains on the horizon. And I've never even been to Colorado, and I'm speaking like I have, but I know enough about it that I know that. And then suddenly, when you're getting closer to Denver, that's obviously when elevation jumps up and you physically see the mountains shoot up. It's the Rocky Mountains. But anyways, I'm sure some of you folks in this region of the country are like, well, duh, Mitch. But believe it or not, there's a lot of people who don't know that. So 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher in this yellow area. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. Same thing over here in the 15% risk area. And then you will have a hail threat. Not as high over here in the mid-Atlantic and southeast, but you certainly will have it here. A 15% risk of hail pushing 1 inch or diameter or larger within 25 miles in any given location. in this region right here. So we're definitely going to have some hailers in this region. We'll talk about the southern plains and central plains first. You will have an ongoing area of storms, probably somewhere in southern Nebraska, areas of Kansas tomorrow morning. This will try to strengthen. In fact, it most likely will. And at this point, we're, around noon tomorrow, we have a pretty intense line of storms working its way through Kansas, northern Kansas, and this is sweeping across areas of central and eastern Kansas. And how much does this hold together? It's looking like on the latest long-range HRRR model, it does pretty well. So I would watch out the entire eastern half of Kansas. Throughout the afternoon hours, a pretty powerful line of storms could sweep through the area, could have some storm development in central and northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, storms here in Mississippi. This is what I'm talking about, how it's kind of everywhere, right? And it's just because you have a ton of heating, we call them thermodynamics. You got a lot of heating, a lot of moist air around. So eventually, this is going to provide enough oomph, enough juice to the atmosphere. Cape levels will be high. In some areas, there's not even calm for storms. Get storms. And that's just the pop-up summer-type vibes that happen here in the South quite often. A lot of times here in July in South Carolina, you wake up, you only have a 20% chance of a thunderstorm. And suddenly, you get until about 5, 6, 7 o'clock, and then you have a barrage of severe thunderstorms in your area. And it happens sometimes. There's always a cap in place, and when you bust through that cap here in the South, all bets are off. Throw the forecast out the window. But this area storm continues to chug through southeast Kansas potentially. This could look totally different. We'll give you another update tomorrow. But eventually these storms make it all the way into Oklahoma, kind of far northeast Oklahoma. And we'll see what they do. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I can say there's probably going to be a little bit more widespread thunderstorm development in this region, where there actually is a slight risk. You would almost think they need to put it up here. But remember, the Storm Prediction Center goes off a lot of things. Kind of the 500 millibar pattern, the energy in place. They're not going to go off one run of the HRRR model, and that's why they're professionals. But this area of storms will keep on chugging overnight tomorrow night, and we'll see if they hold together. And then we might have some kind of weird area of convection here in Nebraska, Kansas. It looks like almost like a fire hose of convection that gets going, and this takes us all the way into Wednesday morning. So we'll zoom into these areas tomorrow. I know that's kind of a wide look, but one interesting thing I'll show you guys is, look, this is it warming up tomorrow. Look, almost getting into upper 90s, but you see this area right here. Look how the temperatures are rapidly dropping. If you're wondering what that is, it's that area of storms I just talked about that's going to make its way through Kansas. So check out it warming up. It's Tuesday morning, warms up in this area, and then this huge rain-cooled area right here drops the temperatures dramatically. So that's pretty cool. I like showing stuff like that. You get an outflow boundary, and it just dramatically cools the temperatures. You get a lot of boundaries when you have this kind of setup out here. So it's pretty wild to see. You could have the temperature drop 20 degrees in a matter of minutes with these outflow boundaries. Severe weather threat tomorrow also for areas of the Mid-Atlantic. Eastern North Carolina will be a hot spot tomorrow, but areas outside of this could see some nasty weather too. And we kind of zone into Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And we're waking up tomorrow morning. We could have some rain making its way over the southern Alps and just the higher elevations of the central and southern Appalachian Mountains. This might be working its way through the upstate of South Carolina, Piedmont, North Carolina, the foothills of Virginia. And then we'll watch at the same time. There is going to be a cold front that's going to bring a lot more dry air for the Northeast temporarily. A little bit of a cool down and a little bit of a boundary a little bit of a zonal boundaries kind of settling into Virginia. And we'll see if that sparks some thunderstorm development. But I'll be willing to bet kind of in this area right here, and kind of southeast VA, northeast North Carolina, there might be 1 or 2 or 3 strong to severe storms. And I wouldn't totally rule out, even though there's not even a 2% risk of a tornado, I wouldn't totally rule out with a boundary kind of seeking down to the area. Remember, the changing of wind directions between one area and the next could get a little bit of spin up here to some of these storms. So watch out for a tornado warning or two up in that region. We get into about the 4 o'clock range, 5 o'clock range. Look at these storms, little storms firing up here. And these storms will certainly have a chance to produce some large hail in these regions. And the reason is because you got dry air surging in from the north and northeast. And this is putting a lot of dry, cooler air in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So even though you'll be very warm in this region tomorrow, a lot of cool air is moving in aloft. Cool air aloft helps to support a lot of hail, sometimes large. But thunderstorm development is possible in central Georgia, areas of South Carolina. These will be widely scattered and very isolated, so it's going to be hard to figure out who, but it'd be nice to get off work tomorrow and do a little storm chase, and we'll see what happens here. But some storms, I think, will be more widespread in eastern North Carolina, but could get storms from Alabama all the way up through the southeast tomorrow as we're going through in time. And with that northwest flow, they'll be moving in from the northwest, then out into the Atlantic Ocean. Temperatures tomorrow, look how warm we get, right? This is the HRRR model. We are rising well into the 90s, into the coastal plains of North Carolina, the low country of South Carolina, eastern South Carolina, central South Carolina. We have not technically hit 90 degrees yet in Columbia, South Carolina. That's pretty wild for, May 8th, May 9th time frame. I hit 89.8, which if you round it up, technically that's 90 degrees. But it's pretty wild. It hasn't been a bad spring as far as hot weather, but you can see this boundary sinking down, guys. Look how the temperatures dramatically drop in this region. This is digging down to North Carolina. For example, in Raleigh, sometime around 4 to 5 to 6 p.m. tomorrow, you might go from the upper 80s to the 70s very quickly as this kind of backdoor cold front kind of sinks into this area and brings a little bit of a cooler day for Wednesday. But in response to this big-time heating, we'll see what this kind of early morning convection showers will do to the atmosphere, but we'll see how much the atmosphere does recover after that. But we get, into the afternoon hours. We do have some energy out there, the surface-based cape out here, so you do have some storms, some energy to fuel off of for these storms that do make their way through in this region out here in the southeast. So, and then the storms fire up, and then they eat up all that energy. See the little bubbles on your screen, and then that front moves through, and it totally stabilizes the atmosphere. And we will have no fuel to the atmosphere for storms probably tomorrow. Probably for Wednesday. Slight risk of severe storms. This is really because of an upper level low that's going to swing through, going to pull in a dry line setup, and you are going to have a chance for some severe storms in this area. A lot of storm chasers plan their chasecation in May. And they, take a week, 2 weeks, sometimes a month off of work, go out here and chase for several days at a time. And even on these slight risk days, you can get some very photogenic storms. And this is an interesting area, Wyoming. And what's wild is, hopefully I'm speaking on this statistic correctly, but there's an area in northeast Colorado, and that area in northeast Colorado has had the most tornadoes than anybody in the U.S. So you wouldn't think Colorado would be the state, would you? But it is, and there's going to be a slight risk right over that area. So, and I think it's a difference between elevation that actually helps put a spin to the atmosphere. And I think the same thing happens here in Virginia, North Carolina, and upstate South Carolina sometimes when you have a shift in direction. Shift in elevation. I think that actually helps to put a spin to the atmosphere depending on where the atmospheric currents are moving. But slight risk for Wednesday in this area for now. I don't think this is a big tornado threat. I don't think it's a big threat of anything, but you're going to have some severe storms. And then we go to day 4. This shifts a little bit east and then southeast, and you're going to have a dry line set up for western Kansas, western Oklahoma, areas of Nebraska, and eastern Colorado, even into Texas. So, and we'll even watch some couple days afterwards, but I do think potentially after Friday, we might enter a quiet period for at least a couple days. What I can tell you is there is an active period of just rain. We'll start off Wednesday, and this is going to be all over the place. You're just going to see blobs of green and yellow and red and orange. But, we get into Thursday, a lot of rain you're seeing flying across the screen, especially down here in Texas. Look at this big storm showing up in Texas. Maybe Friday into Saturday, a lot of rain in south central U.S. And then finally you might get an active period, I think sometime in the eastern U.S. next week. But we go about a week out, and this is how much rain can fall between now and the next week for the plains, the southern plains, central and northern plains. A lot. Look down here in Texas, guys. maybe a half a foot of rain can fall between now and the next week based off the national blend of all models. Okay, so definitely a rainy setup over the next several days in this region of the country. You go to the east, not as rainy. In fact, here in my area in South Carolina, not a lot of rain at all, unfortunately. So I'm hoping we can get one of these little pop-up storms tomorrow or sometime throughout the rest of the week, or it's going to be feast or famine continually out there. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Have yourself a great rest of your night.